and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to do my March wrap up. In March I read 31 things, and if you didn't know, March had 31 days, so I kind of played myself. First thing I read in the month of March was I'm the Vampire That's Why by Michelle Bardsley. This is the first book in the Broken Hearts series, this town called Broken Hearts, which has a high divorce rate. I picked this up on a whim at the library. It follows a woman who take out the trash and woke up and she was a vampire. It is pretty stereotypical vampire romance, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The next book I read was The Opposite of Innocence by Sonia Sones. I had heard a bit about this. It is told in verse, and it is chronicling this young girl as she's being groomed by her father's best friend. I did not like how it ends. It kind of just ends abruptly before you really get a conclusion on if she gets the help that you're hoping she gets. However, it does end with the author giving resources for victims of this. However, you don't really get a satisfying conclusion on if the character actually gets the resources she needs and if the character gets the help she needs, so it's kind of up in the air on that. Next I read Robin by Dave Itzkoff. This is the biography about Robin Williams. Dave Itzkoff had known Robin Williams in life and obviously wrote his biography. He did insert some anecdotes, and there was actually on the audiobook a short little section at the end interviewing, talking about knowing Robin Williams in life, which was really interesting in how it went into writing the biography. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It just was really lengthy in my opinion, and that really ended up impacting my rating. A lot of the biographies I've been reading lately about famous people have just been super lengthy, and I feel like they're just lengthy just to be lengthy, but I really did enjoy it, and I feel like the author didn't let his knowing him in life affect how he was writing about him post-mortem. Next, I read The Single Undead Moms Club, which is the 4th book in the Half Moon Hollow series by Molly Harper. This is about a town where vampires exist. However, you don't really need to read them in any kind of order, but you get a better picture if you read them all together. This one in particular follows our main protagonist Libby, who has a form of cancer and her body is beginning to fail, and she has a young son. Instead of just passing, she decides to become a vampire so that she has a chance to raise her young son because her husband has passed away. I ended up giving this one in particular 5 stars. I like how each book in this series has its own contained thing, but it also has a romance. I like how this one has the problems of being a single mom and a new vampire, and the widow part, and dealing with getting back out there and dating, and also the fact that she's a vampire. I really enjoyed this one. I really like the series because, yeah, they're all romances, but they also have other things to them, like the vampire things. Next, I read Where the Wild Things Fight, which is the 5th book in the series. Like I said, I've been kind of binge reading the series, and this one follows an archivist, and she is carrying precious cargo to the Half Moon Hollow, and her plane goes down, and the only other passenger on the plane is a vampire, and they are trekking to Half Moon Hollow, and she is not super trustworthy of the other person on her new companion, but she's trekking with him, and I ended up enjoying it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I wasn't super sold towards the end, but I ended up enjoying it enough to give it 4 stars. Next I read Fangs for the Memories, which is a little novella that takes place during the Jane Jameson series, which is the original series, but it basically follows 2 characters that get together during it, and it's just them getting together during the series, and I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It just it was really self-fulfilling, and I really loved it. This one might be technically 5.5, but it follows events directly after the 3rd book, and one of the characters repercussions of the 3rd book, and it basically is teen vampires at college, and it was just a super cute time. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. This is a massive tome chronicling the first chunk of Kvothe's life, and I picked this one up again after a chunk of time has passed. I first read it in 2016, and I've read quite a few books since then, so I decided to pick this one back up. I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Both is the kind of narrator you just want to keep listening from, and he says very early on that he might say stuff and you might think it's pointless, but it clearly isn't, and I feel like Patrick Rothfuss does such a good job of making it seem like stuff is pointless and then circling back around and it being very pointful. And so I'm super excited to getting into The Wise Man's Fear whenever I end up picking that one up. I read And One Last Thing by Molly Harper. This is a standalone about a woman who finds out her husband has been cheating on her with his secretary BB, and she finds out by accidentally receiving flowers that had been meant for his secretary. And so instead of confronting, she sends it out in the newsletter that she writes every month for all of his associates. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. This was her first standalone and her first contemporary work, so I'm wondering if it has something to do with that. But it was still a delight to read. Next, I read A Hobbit, a Wardrobe, and a Great War, how J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis rediscovered faith, friendship, and heroism in the cataclysm of 1914 through 1918. However, this book kind of failed on that. It really was a lot of the author speculating about how J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis would have done these things. And the author really was heavy-handed and was using his own experiences in this speculation. And the author was using, and the faith part in the title was really the author talking about his own faith. And I gave this book 2 stars. Next, I read Girls of Paper and Fire, which was the Loosely Bound Book Club pick of the month. Loosely Bound Book Club is the book club I run with Dylan and Murphy. I think the only one who ended up finishing this book. I ended up giving it 4. It is super slow in the beginning, and I feel like it kind of reverses it towards the end. This book was super brutal going in, and it's definitely a kind of book where you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I definitely don't know if I'm gonna possibly continue on with the series. Next, I read The Wife Between Us. I ended up giving this book 3 stars. This was considered one of the better thrillers from last year. However, I didn't super love it. I did find the author's writing super addicting. However, I kind of wasn't super loving it. I didn't see the first twist coming, but after that, it kind of fell flat for me. Speaking of thrillers I did like, I really enjoyed My Lovely Wife by Samantha Downing. I received an e-arc of this through NetGalley. However, this book has since been released. This is a debut about a man and woman who basically kind of find women to kill to keep their marriage interesting. I see this book being one of the thrillers of the year because of its page-turning status. You want to know what's happening next. Ending is absolutely eerie. I cannot wait for the author's next book. However, I ended up only giving this book 4 stars because towards the end I felt like it was a bit rushed and I would have liked it expanded upon a bit more. Next, I read The Bone Witch by Rin Chipico. This is the second book in the Heartforger trilogy, and I really absolutely loved The Bone Witch last year. Like I said in my previous wrap-up, I love me some necromancy, and this book is no exception. I absolutely love T and her journey, and this book was again no exception. It was a perfect addition to the series, and I love this world. It's absolutely addicting, and I cannot wait to get to the finale. I gave this book a full 5 stars. Speaking of full 5 stars, the next book I read was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I received an e-arc of this through NetGalley, and I absolutely loved it, which is surprising because I've been kind of close to 5 stars with quite a few Christina Lauren books recently, and this one I absolutely love. This one I actually am ahead of the game on. This one comes out on May 12th. Solve plot points at the end. There is the perfect amount of hate to love, angst, and drama. It's just my favorite Christina Lauren book, and I absolutely loved it. I'm so thankful to have gotten an e-arc of this one. 5 out of 5. I absolutely loved it. Thing that I read was an e-arc of the Dream Daddy graphic novel. I basically really love the Dream Daddy dating sim game, and there was a graphic novel of it, and I was like, I'm interested. I was kind of hesitant as to how this medium switch would work, but basically it's little vignettes, and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Trade Me by Courtney Milan. I tried my first Courtney Milan this month. I was super excited. A girl who is in a lower class kind of situation, and she basically finds herself basically telling this billionaire boy, if you think you can, you know, live a lower class lifestyle, trade me. And they Trey. Relationship with the guy and his father falls flat, and the end of the book kind of really hinders on that. So I ended up giving this book 4 stars, but I enjoyed it and I cannot wait to read my next Courtney Milan book. I read the first 90 days, which literally was because I saw someone at work had it. Do not recommend this. It's basically how to adjust to your new management role in the first 90 days, and it's like, if you can't, you know, basically a monkey could do it, and it's just not good. Do not recommend. 2 stars. Next, I read On the Surface, which is a hockey romance. Like I've said before, I love hockey romances. I know just the bare minimum about hockey, so if it's a hockey romance, I'll read a hockey romance. This one was cute, nothing super special, but overall, I ended up giving it 3 stars. Next, I read Not Even Bones by Rebecca Schaeffer. When this book originally came out, I had heard some not super great things about it, but this is basically about a girl who whose family basically sells creature bones on a black market, and then she ends up on the black market herself, and it's surprisingly twisted. I guess is the best way to put that. I'm not expecting it to go on the path it was taking, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. Another book that I got an e-arc of, I got an e-arc of Give Me Some Sugar by Molly Harper. This is the 3rd book in the Southern Electric series. This one has the to lovers kind of story going on. It is super cute, and it's also kind of second chancey. This is about a woman who moves back to town after widowed, and she starts a bakery. There's so many food descriptions. It's wonderful. And there's a wonderful amount of talk about therapy and anxiety in this book. It's really nice. And it's really good. I ended up giving this book 5 stars, and I really hope there are more books in the series. But I really enjoyed this one. I got an e-arc of Fumbled by Alexa Martin. I read Intercepted by Alexa Martin earlier this year, and wow, the amount of growth between Intercepted and Fumbled is amazing to me. I really liked Intercepted, and I loved Fumbled so much more. I ended up giving Fumbled 4 stars. Super tough topics in football. Has really good chemistry with her characters. It's just really good, and like if you're interested in like the football romances, I definitely recommend checking out Alexa Martin's. Sin of the Crane. This one I also received an e-arc of. This one I received an e-arc of through Edowise actually. It's a Chinese fantasy, and the best way to like describe it is like the little tagline: tyrants cut out hearts, rulers sacrifice their own, and it's just like that's the best way to like summarize it. It's super well written, and it's like the writing has some like super like has some weak points, and it's like got the best plot twist that I didn't see coming, and it's just so good. And I gave it 4 stars, and I cannot believe this book was a debut, and it was so good. I cannot wait for like more books by her. I can't wait. Also in March I read The Prior of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. That book was big. I ended up giving that book 4 stars. The main thing about that book that I read a lot of books in March, but my main takeaway with that one is it was a high fantasy, and I kept switching formats from it, and I hadn't read high fantasy in a while, so that was problem number 1. And I kept switching formats. I read part on e, part on audio, part on physical, so if I reread it I might give it 5 stars, but like I'm a dingus who switched formats 3 times. I had Better Homes and Hauntings by Molly Harper. The book has to do with ghosts, and it's a standalone, and I didn't like it as much as her series. I don't think she did the ghost as well as she does in her one series that has to do with ghosts. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I just didn't like the ghosts as much. Vampires Mail Order Bride, which obviously it's a romance. The whole series is about romantic creature pairings. I might pick the next one up, who knows. But this one I gave 4 stars. It was cute after the whole, you know, we're lying to each other thing. It's cute. I gave it 4 stars. I read The Girl from the Well while I was at the doctor. Really good. I was not expecting to like this as much as I did. He does a really good job with characters. It's like super fascinating characters, super creepy, and I cannot wait to pick up the next one. I gave this one 4 stars. Next, I tried to do Zoe's 24-hour readathon thing, and then I took a 6-hour nap. But what I read beforehand was The Perfect Nanny. This was, obviously, it's a thriller. The beginning, super thrilling. The book, super not. Gave it 3 stars. I read a book based on Samantha Leanne's recommendation because she said it was super creepy. It's called Sour Candy. That book was super creepy. It's like 64 pages or something like that. I gave that one 4 stars. That was creepy. Then I read Dead Queens Club, which is a King Henry VIII retelling, modern day. I was super dedicated to finishing this book, and the events of the Dust Jacket take like half of the book to happen. And like, if you know the events of King Henry, you know what's gonna happen. And like, it's impulsively readable. Gave it 2 stars. The very last thing that I read in the month of March, because we are at the end, friends. Very last thing I finished before I fell asleep on Zoe's 24-hour readathon was Bourbon, A History of an American Spirit. Yep, I was reading a book about the history of bourbon. I ended up giving this 4 stars. Some parts were super interesting, some parts weren't. I don't know how to make a book about bourbon interesting. I really don't. What did you read in March? I know that was quite a bit ago. How are you? How were things? If you like what you saw here today, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a nice day.